Bitcoin Spot ETF and how does it work? Let's mine deep. An ETF is an exchange-traded fund. It is a type of investment fund and exchange-traded product, traded on a stock exchange, much like individual stocks. An ETF holds assets such as stocks, bonds, or commodities, and is designed to track the performance of a specific index, in this case, the price of Bitcoin. The premise of a Bitcoin ETF is similar to that of a mutual fund. The price of a share of a Bitcoin ETF roughly tracks with the price of Bitcoin, providing you with exposure to Bitcoin without having to buy it directly, understand how it works, or even how to store it. They can be an attractive investment due to their low cost, tax efficiency, and stock-like features. They provide investors a way to pool their money in a fund that makes investments in stocks, bonds, or other assets like Bitcoin, and in return to receive an interest in that investment pool. ETFs come in different forms. There are two ways that are important when related to Bitcoin. You have future ETFs and spot ETFs. So let's talk about them. With future ETFs, you're kind of making a bet on what Bitcoin's price will be in the future, hence future. Imagine telling a friend that in a month, the price of a watch in a shop will go up. You don't own the watch or the Bitcoin in this case, you're just making a prediction on the price. But in the US, while they've made it legal to speculate on the Bitcoin price with future ETFs, they've made people wait until at least January 2024 to decide whether or not the spot ETFs will be legal.
Something in early January, maybe, the US could finally have its first spot Bitcoin ETF. That, of course, assuming that it is ever actually approved by the SEC.
Investors are eagerly awaiting SEC approval for Bitcoin ETF.
So what are they? Bitcoin spot ETFs are also known as physical backed ETFs, the ones that hold the actual underlying asset. In simple terms, a company gathers funds from people, including you and me, to purchase actual Bitcoin. When you invest in this ETF, your investment fluctuates with the current Bitcoin price. It's similar to chipping in with friends to collectively buy that watch, but with Bitcoin being that shared asset in this case. The term spot comes from the spot market, where trades are made for immediate delivery. In various countries, individuals have the option to invest in both types of ETFs, but in the US, no. Over the years, many have tried and failed to get spot ETFs approved with the SEC. Bitcoin exchange owners Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss filed the first Bitcoin ETF back in 2013. The second Bitcoin ETF was filed 3 years later by SolidX Partners Inc. and many more since. But as of June 15, 2023, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, filed an application with the SEC for a spot Bitcoin ETF. This was a real game changer.
Asset management giant BlackRock took the first steps yesterday to launch a spot Bitcoin ETF, filing an application with the SEC to launch the iShares Bitcoin Trust.
The floodgates had opened, and other companies like WisdomTree, Invesco, Fidelity Investment, Grayscale, ARK Invest, VanEck, and many others have also filed. People familiar with the filing process said issuers that had met their end-of-the-year filing revision deadlines may be able to launch by January 10th, the date by which the SEC is required to either approve or reject. So why should you care? Because it could change the way that traditional Wall Street banking system works. The ETF could lead to major banks getting involved. However, the twist is that while you're investing in Bitcoin, it wouldn't be in your custody. ETF shares are depository receipts, and while these shares are relative to a proportional amount of Bitcoin that has been deposited with the ETF custodian, ultimately, your Bitcoin is at the whim of the custodian. You need to learn how to store your Bitcoin. As always, not your keys, not your coins. Don't miss Jen VanEck Backstage. What do you think the aftermath of FTX, the whole shebang, how is it going to affect the Bitcoin industry?
You know, I think at the end of the day, not that much. I think the structure of the industry and one of the ethos has been self-custody wallets. So keep your Bitcoin in your wallet. Don't trust a centralized exchange. I think this was a huge reminder that that's super important. And you know, so I don't think that'll change though, because that's been part of the industry.
And what about to those people that don't know much about Bitcoin and are like, oh, this is another reason to be against it? What would you tell them?
Okay, so you have your money at a bank. Commercial banks are very fragile institutions, meaning if we all go to the ATM of any bank, including JP Morgan, they cannot pay us back our money. So you shouldn't trust necessarily anything. What you're relying on is government to bail out those banks. But what we've seen this year is sometimes they bail them out, sometimes they don't, and they don't tell us ahead of time why. Like Credit Suisse failed. The average, even institution like us, we didn't know that they weren't going to be bailed out by the government. So I think, listen, it's unreliable, the existing banking system. You need a hedge in your portfolios against that kind of uncertainty, and that's why I'm at a Bitcoin conference.
And when was that time that Bitcoin clicked for you?
2017.
Yeah, why?
I just did the deep dive. I said, listen, our firm has been involved in gold since 1968, and I said, I've got to study this. Is this going to compete against gold? And I felt like absolutely, yes, it provides some of the certainty of supply and a potential hedge in your portfolio. So that's why.
And let's say if you had SBF right in front of you, what would you tell him?
I think, Sam, I think Eric Voorhees got the better of you in the whole argument about the regulation of crypto. And running a financial institution is a really tough thing to do. And you should have put in more safeguards.
If you had to be in an elevator with somebody and you have to give them the Bitcoin elevator pitch under 10 seconds, what would you tell them?
The world changes super fast. You need to think about a lot of things in your portfolio. Don't just think about stocks and bonds or what's performed well in the last 5 minutes. That's it. History tells you that over hundreds of years.